Rights and responsibilities. Clearly, as a student, you have a lot of rights and a lot of responsibilities, both as a student of the university and as a human being. And your supervisor also has rights and responsibilities as a member of faculty and as a human being. I think it's useful to go through understanding of rights and responsibilities with my students. What do you think your rights are? What do you think your responsibilities are? And so on. But for the purposes of today, I think it's important to be aware that you have considerable rights. And one of the rights is not to suffer in silence. So if you have challenging situation in relation to your PhD or supervision and so on, one of your rights is certainly not to suffer in silence, and I strongly recommend that you don't do that, and that you take an active approach, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Some universities, some students, some supervisors have found that a contract, written agreement or memos of understanding are useful. For example, in setting out goals, setting out a timetable, setting out deadlines. Some universities, particularly in the United States, do that, have a mandatory contract. Some universities in this country also do that. We don't here in Oxford. And personally, I wouldn't want to go to that formal length with my own students. But it may be something that you would like to explore. It doesn't have to be a sort of legalistic contract. It may be just a goal-setting contract. The supervisory relationship nowadays frequently involves more than one person, which is why I made that remark right at the start, that 30 years ago you could be completely dependent on one supervisor, whereas now you will have more than one relationship. Co-supervision and supervisory teams are much, much more common now, and indeed are mandatory in most universities. They're mandatory in most universities because of the problems of supervisor availability, absence, moving on, and also to have a more distributed sense of supervision, so that the supervisor relationship is not just a one-to-one, it's more of a team endeavour. As I said earlier, there are disciplinary differences. So if you are a DPhil student in a laboratory setting, you will have relationships with all the other people in the lab, postdocs and so on. Whereas if you're library-based DPhil student, you won't have that team, access to a team so much necessarily. Perhaps almost as important is your cohort of DPhil peers, the people who are around you in your department or your faculty, the people who are engaged in the same process of doing a DPhil as you. Not on exactly the same topic, but the people that you run into in the library, in the department, in the faculty, and so on. Because your colleagues and your peers can play a very, very important role in providing a sounding board, listening to any issues that you have, giving feedback, sharing challenges, and so on. Then there are other academic faculty. So we hope that you will interact with a wide range of academic faculty beyond your supervisor. And I think it's appropriate for you to arrange meetings with other people, to have feedback from other academic faculty, perhaps ask their advice on particular questions, but that does need to be done tactfully, and probably it's a good idea to inform your supervisor that you're doing that. But it's very important that you do engage with other academic faculty. And of course, increasingly, you'll be engaged